What's up YouTube, this is Harvey1997 here, coming at you today with my deck profile for my pure Odd Eyes deck, or more I should say, my dedicated Odd Eyes, rather than like Arc Pendulum and just like a Pendulum Dragon or something thrown into the Magician thing. No, this is Odd Eyes. So, I took this to my locals yesterday, just to screw around, have a little fun, and I wound up going undefeated. It wasn't the greatest local you could have, it was by far not our most competitive. But regardless, the point still stands. The deck performed like it was supposed to perform. And though I didn't face up against all of the greatest decks and all of those things like that, I did still have the big struggle that this deck has being Droll Knockbird and Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring. Those were still in all those decks, and there's still problems. But this deck was still able to perform. So, I'll go over my matchups later. For now, deck list. Alright. So we start off, and I guess I should mention as well, there are a few things missing from the main and side that I moved back into my Trickstar deck just because I didn't want to. I wound up doing some playtesting with someone last night, and I don't feel like unsleeving, resleeving in these just for the one profile, so use your imagination for those cards when they come up. So, we have 3 copies of Arc Pendulum, 0 question on him. 1 copy of Odd Eyes Pendulum Dragon. I found this actually to be enough. I realize how broken Phantom actually is, and then wound up saying, you know, I don't really need more than 1 Pendulum. He's the searchable scale, and we don't really need much more than that. We just need that Pendulum in his name, more than anything. And if you're not searching with Duelist Alliance, probably searching Phantom Dragon, because Phantom's better in most cases. And then we have our 3 copies of Phantom to put in that massive damage and for good rank 7 plays. Next up, we have 3 copies of Odd Eyes Persona Dragon. This card's insane. It negates stuff, and there was some from the extra deck. It's a 1 scale. Yeah, no question on me running 3 of them. Also, it being level 5 is relevant for something that was not in my combo video. Because yes, there have been many changes since I did that combo video. We have 2 copies of Odd Eyes Dissolver. I would not change this for anything. The card's just really, really, really good for summoning your Vortex. And for people who don't know, one of the best plays this deck can do is if you have Arc Pendulum in your scale, and you use Dissolver to fusion summon Vortex, as in summon it correctly, you can let Vortex die. Like, for example, one of my games, someone targeted Vortex with an Afterburner while I had Arc Pendulum in scale, said, okay, no negate, that's fine. On Destruction, activate Arc Pendulum, summon Vortex back in the main monster zone. It's like, oh. Huh. Yeah, and that swung that game really hard in my favor. So, it's insane when you can do that. 'Cause you don't, like, it's so hard to bait Vortex, basically. Then we have our 1 copy of Performapal Odd Eyes Synchron. This is what I swapped out the Mirage Dragon for, because as much as I like Mirage Dragon being that 8 scale, which is good for some other things, which I'll get to later, I found like 99% of the time I was normal summoning him, and this, while virtually the same for just that normal summon, also has that utility of being able to summon our Persona Dragon from the scale and make a level 7 Synchro, which can be used to make Meteor Burst Dragon naturally, but most of the time, let's be honest, we want more negations, so Dawn Dragster is a good card. Then we have our Chronograph engine being 3 Chrono and 1 Time Gazer, just to help speed up getting to Electrumite and for assistance in making Norito. And finally, the Darkworm engine of 1 Gate 0 and 3 copies of Darkworm. I know some people like to only run like 1 of this, maybe 2, because they think it's a Garnet that you should leave in deck for Dragon Shrine. I do not agree with that at all. I want to see this card in some way, shape, or form every single game. Whether it means I'm normal summoning it and then doing just a Pendulum summon and not being able to get Electrumite before the Pendulum. Whether it means I'm summoning Darkworm normally and then using a Chronograph to get the second monster. Or if I'm using Foolish or Dragon Shrine to get it. I want this card every single game. That plus it gives for Gate 0 is so incredibly important. And then for main deck hand traps, I kept a pretty small lineup, but the thing was here, I realized, because I have 3 Called by the Grave in here now, I realized, well, I want a hand trap though, but I also want something that can help me when I'm comboing off to prevent stuff. And then something dawned on me. Gamma and Driver. These cards were nuts, to say the least. For one, holy crap, this thing is insane against Goki, because for one, Aqua Dolphin can't hit it. Two, this doesn't just negate Firewall like an Impermanence will. This destroys the Firewall. It's insane if you can resolve that. And also, if you see, like, one thing that we had go happen yesterday against the my Goki matchup was he went for Isolde with a, he went Normal Summon Marauding Captain, Special Summon Ash Blossom, and then overlaid into Invoker. This told me that he had no Gokis in his hand, so when he detached to summon with Invoker, I used Gamma right then and there, and it ended his turn, basically. So, yeah, the card was great. Also, stopping Droll and Ash is really good, because everything except Dark Worm in this deck is pretty much, like, we have all of our spells, they're just like little one-for-one searches. We have our Skyrus, Terraforming, Duelist Alliance, Arc Pendulum, all of these things that just are like quick little searches, and you can so easily negate a Droll or an Ash with your Gamma because of them, because you don't have a monster in the field yet most of the time. Card was insane. Best tech I could have found for this deck. Amazing. Then we move on to our spells. 3 copies of Skyrus and 3 copies of Terraforming. It really, really sucks when you see doubles of this, but you really have to get a copy of Skyrus if you want to, like, do your big plays. It's kind of easy to, like, side out one of each of these, or, like, side out all 3 Terraformings if you're going against the Trick Stars, because you don't want yourself getting Droll Reincarnation. That's, no. No. But in, like, game 1, you want this card all the time. It does too many combos to not have. Then we have our 3 copies of Duelist Alliance and 3 copies of Spiral Flame Strike. This just searches a level 7 Odd Eyes. This searches either Odd Eyes Pendulum Dragon or Odd Eyes Arc Pendulum Dragon most of the time. Or my other tech card is added in, Pendulum Paradox. This one wasn't, it's not quite as spicy as the Gamma, to be honest. I didn't like it quite as much as I did that card. But it was still a nice addition to the deck, because it does allow you to get a quick plus. So if you don't have access to Skyrus, it'll still let you get a plus, so you can resolve the second Electrumite should you need to go that route. Then I played 1 copy of Foolish Burial and 3 copies of Dragon Shrine to get to Dark Worm even faster, because like I said, I want him every game. And I also main deck 3 Called by the Grave, but like I said, those are in Trick Stars right now, so I didn't feel like swapping them out. So the deck is actually 45 cards, but the reason behind this is because we do play a decent amount of things that we don't want to see multiple copies of. For one, we don't want to see multiple copies of Gamma. We don't want to see Driver at all. Gate 0, I really think I should have played 2 of this, to be completely honest, but hey. Time Gazer, we don't want to draw into. Things like Arc Pendulum, you want to see 1 of, but you never want to see 2, because then it's just a vanilla card. We have cards like our Skyrus and Terraforming that you want to see 1 of, but you don't want to see 2. You never want to see 2 Duelist Alliance, things like that. So I think 45 is actually a really good ratio for the deck, to be completely honest. I also wound up cutting Desires just because I felt like the +1 that it gave was not quite worth the randomness factor, as well as getting rid of cards like the Psyframe Driver. It just wasn't worth. I think the Driver engine was much better in practice than Desires could have been. Go over the side deck really quickly. There were 3 Ashes and 3 Drolls in here, but again, they're in the Trickstar deck. They're just generic hand traps I couldn't find room for in the main deck. I didn't want to put any more than 45. That's like my top number. But I also couldn't really. I didn't want to put them in for the heavy combo deck when I need as many combo pieces as I can get. That was the other trade-off there. So anyway, we had those 3 of each of those, 3 copies of Twin Twisters, 3 copies of Shared Ride, and 3 copies of Evenly Matched. Pretty generic side, to be honest, but hey, it is what it is. And then the extra deck. We have our links, being 2 copies of Electrumite, 1 copy of Metaltron, and 1 Underclock Taker. This card is still just insane with Odd Eyes Pendulum Dragon, because double battle damage when you can reduce something's attack, it's crazy how much damage this card can do. Then we have our rank 7s, or I guess just our Exceeses, because there is a non-rank 7 here. We have our 2 copies of Absolute Dragon, 1 copy of Gaia Dragon the Thunder Charger. This should probably honestly be a Red Eyes Flare Metal Dragon, or something else can be cut for a Flare Metal. There's a flex spot in here for, I'm going to guess, like 90% of the people watching this video, because chances are if you're playing Odd Eyes, they don't have this card. But then we have our 1 copy of Naruto, and then my tech choice, instead of playing Flare Metal, was the 1 copy of number 89, Diablosis the Mind Hacker, just because I wanted to summon him for once. I did. It was pretty good when I did summon him, I won't lie. I summoned him 1 game after using an evenly matched, so he had to banish 4 cards from his deck due to his effect, because I ripped the 1 from his extra deck, and I'd already ripped 3 from evenly that turn, so it was pretty insane. But honestly, this should probably be just 2 Absolute, 1 Gaia, 1 Naruto, and 1 Flare Metal. Even if you do have this card, it's really not very good. So you should probably run Flare Metal instead if you want to play optimally. It was just for the fun factor. Then we have our fusions, being 2 copies of Odd Eyes Vortex Dragon. Never run less than this. The card's way too good, and it is very easy to go through both of them, especially with another combo that I did not show in my other video, which I actually will show that in a moment. And then 1 copy of Perform Power Gatling Ghoul, because the damage this guy can do on his own is retarded, and it's also a Borreload out that makes us not have to play Borreload, because making Borreload in this deck is really, really difficult. So, there's those. Then for our Synchros, we have 1 copy of Odd Eyes Meteor Burst Dragon, 1 copy of FA Dawn Dragster, and then because we play Gammon Driver, 1 copy of Psyframe Lord Omega. Let's see. Alright. So really quick before I get off of here, before I go into my matchups and all that, I do want to show what that combo was I was referring to. Basically, you use Supreme King Gate 0. If you have him Pendulum summoned, like you had a really weird hand. Alright, so let's say you have something like this, where you had like normal summon Dark Worm to get your 0, but then you can't really do anything else after that. Or, I guess that's not really very good. I can't think of a scenario when it would come up, to be honest. I only had it happen 1 time yesterday, but it let me make Vortex, and that was the key thing. Basically, the scenario was, I had a Gate 0 out, I had, let's see, I had an Arc Pendulum in my scale that had not been able to trigger yet, and I think, what was that other card? I think it was an Odd Eyes Synchron or something like that. I don't honestly remember. It may have been a Phantom Dragon. I don't know. We'll say Phantom just to make it more simple. But basically the scenario was I wound up using Gate 0 to pop itself and the Phantom Dragon to summon an Odd Eyes Fusion from or a Dragon Synchro or Fusion from my extra deck with its effects negated. And it would not be properly summoned. So you could summon Meteor Burst if you want to, but I'd rather leave him in there. So what I did was I summoned my first Vortex Dragon. Then 2 things happen here. 1, Arc Pendulum can activate to special Odd Eyes from the deck. 2, Supreme King Gate 0, when destroyed in the monster zone, can place himself in the scale, so you get to complete the scales again. And also lets you chain block. So then I was able to summon my Dissolver. And Dissolver is able to fuse itself and Vortex to make another copy of Vortex appear in the extra monster zone. Oh, okay, I remember the scenario, what happened in this duel. What happened was, I opened these 3 cards, as well as a Gamma and a Called by the Grave. That's what it was. The Called by the Grave was just set at the end of the turn because it did not get used, but the Gamma actually did resolve. No, it was, I didn't have this. It was something like, I remember I had I had one of these 2. I used the Spiral Flame Strike to search the other, in which case he drolled, I chained Gamma, made the Omega. Then, after doing that, I was still able to end on a Vortex up here. So that was the scenario, I guess. So, yeah, it was not, obviously, that's not an insane board by any stretch, but think about it. At that point, I still had the called set, I had completed scales, and then he had his only 3 cards in hand, drawing for turn for 4 against the Vortex. that when he tried to bait it, I was able to let it die and just summon it back with Arc Pendulum. It's crazy. So that is the deck profile for my matchups that I played against. Round 1, I think I played Vampires. Is that? Yes. Shiranui Vampires, I think. I don't know. He didn't open very well in either of our games, and they were over pretty quickly, to be honest. Let's see. Round 2, I played against ABC Sky Striker. And that was the game that I resolved that Gamma against and did that whole play that I was just referring to. That was a really fun match to play out. It was again over very quickly because he did not open well enough to break through either of the boards I made, or I guess I was able to stop him in one of the games, and then round 3 I played against Goki, and I got it 2-0. I opened Gamma 2 games in a row, and I felt a little bad about that. But the chances of me opening a hand trap in that second game were pretty high since I put in 3 Droll, 3 Ash, and 3 evenly. But nonetheless, the Gamma was enough to end it. It's dumb how good that card is against Goki. Then round 4, I played against a more budget version of Trickstar Sky Striker, and there wasn't really anything too exciting to talk about in that game. Game 1, he got me fairly low because I had a bunch of searches while he had Licorice out, but I was able to power through his board and OTK him. So I only had 1,000 life points at the end because he had another thing said. I don't remember what he burned me for a lot. Basically, I was only down to 1,000, like I said, but I was able to swing for 500 over game, and that was without making any extra deck monsters. It was just summon. I think I summoned a Dissolver from the deck in case I couldn't get game by some hand trap or back row or something, because that was enough anyway. And then I believe I pendulumed a Phantom Dragon from my extra deck and 2 Phantoms from hand, I want to say. Or maybe I had one in the scale, 2 from hand, and a Odd Eyes Pendulum Dragon. That sounds right. It was just beat down, basically. And then in Game 2, I don't remember what was significant in Game 2, to be completely honest. But yeah, it was a really fun event overall, and just a little locals, but it was still fun to play. Got plenty of practice against that ABC Sky Striker deck later in the day, and then again played a little bit more against Goki. It was really fun. So the deck works very well. Again, it struggles against Droll and Ash, hence why the Call by the Grave and Gammas are in there. The trade-off is that your hand won't be full of combo pieces. That combo video I showed the other day where I was constantly making Naruto, Persona, Vortex, or anything like that, or even just Naruto, Vortex, that didn't happen. I got Naruto, Vortex one time, and I had Naruto on its own another time, backed up with a Persona, I think. I couldn't get to that board when trying to actually play through Droll and Ash so much, because even when I was able to negate them with Call by the Grave and Gamma, it meant I wasn't having full combo pieces, which meant I couldn't do it as much. The deck was still really fun to play, though. It's still a blast. Highly suggest you play it if you've never done it before. It's really fun, very combo heavy, and it's also very basic and simple to learn. Anyway, guys, that's the deck profile. Tell me what you think about my version of Odd Eyes, or just Odd Eyes in general. If you have any experience playing the deck, tell me what your favorite moment is with the deck. Probably one of mine is just, or not, an easy thing. I guess one of my favorite things about the deck is that little Arc Pendulum plus Vortex thing where you can't bait it. That whole thing. It's insane. That's probably my favorite thing with the deck. But you guys tell me what yours is if you have a favorite thing you can do with the deck. So anyway, as always, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for all my future content, and I'll catch you in my next video.